Section 2 of the Yoga Sutras, Sadhana Pāda, Sutra 1. Tapas Svādhyāya Īśvara Praṇidhāna Kriya Yoga. Tapas Svādhyāya Īśvara Pranidhana Kriya Yoga. Asceticism, austerity, self-study, study which leads to the knowledge of the self through japa, and self-surrender or resignation to God, preliminary practical yoga. Austerity, self-study, and resignation to Isvara constitute preliminary yoga. The last three of the 5 elements of niyama enumerated in Section 2, Sutra 30 have been placed in the above sutra under the title of Kriya Yoga. This is rather an unusual procedure, and we should try to grasp the significance of this repetition in a book which attempts to condense knowledge to the utmost limit. Obviously, the reason why Tapas, Svādhyāya, and Īśvara Praṇidhāna are mentioned in 2 different contexts lies in the fact that they serve 2 different purposes. And since the development of the subject of self-culture in Section 2 of the Yoga Sutras is progressive in character, it follows that the purpose of these 3 elements in Section 2, Sutra 1 is of a more preliminary nature than that in Section 2, Sutra 32. Their purpose in 32 is the same as that of the other elements of niyama and has been discussed at the proper place. What is the purpose in the context of Section 2, Sutra 1? Let us see. Anyone who is familiar with the goal of yogic life and the kind of effort it involves for its attainment will realize that it is neither possible nor advisable for anyone who is absorbed in the life of the world and completely under the influence of kleshas to plunge all at once into the regular practice of yoga. If he is sufficiently interested in the yogic philosophy and wants to enter the path which leads to its goal, he should first accustom himself to discipline, should acquire the necessary knowledge of the Dharma Shastras, and especially of the Yoga Shastras, and should reduce the intensity of his egoism and all other kleshas which are derived from it. The difference between the outlook and the life of the ordinary worldly man and the life which the yogi is required to live is so great that a sudden change from one to the other is not possible, and if attempted, may produce a violent reaction in the mind of the aspirant, throwing him back with still greater force into the life of the world. A preparatory period of self-training in which he gradually assimilates the yogic philosophy and its technique and accustoms himself to self-discipline makes the transition from the one life to the other easier and safer. It also incidentally enables the mere student to find out whether he is sufficiently keen to adopt the yogic life and make a serious attempt to realize the yogic ideal. There are too many cases of enthusiastic aspirants who for no apparent reason cool off or find the yogic discipline too irksome, give it up. They are not yet ready for the yogic life. Even where there is present the required earnestness and the determination to tread the path of yoga, it is necessary to establish a permanent mood and habit of pursuing its ideal. Mere wishing or willing is not enough. All the mental powers and desires of the sadhaka should be polarized and aligned with the yogic ideal. Many aspirants have very confused and sometimes totally wrong ideas with regard to the object and technique of yoga. Many of them have very exaggerated notions with regard to their earnestness and capacity to tread the path of yoga. Their ideas become clarified, and their capacity and earnestness are tested severely in trying to practice Kriya Yoga. They either emerge from the preliminary self-discipline with a clearly defined aim and a determination and capacity to pursue it to the end with vigor and single-minded devotion, or they gradually realize that they are not yet ready for the practice of yoga and decide to tune their aspiration to the lower key of mere intellectual study. This preparatory self-discipline is triple in its nature, corresponding to the triple nature of a human being. Tapas is related to his will. Svādhyāya to the intellect, and Īśvara Praṇidhāna to the emotions. This discipline therefore tests and develops all three aspects of his nature and produces an all-around and balanced growth of the individuality, which is so essential for the attainment of any high ideal. This point will become clear when we consider the significance of these three elements of Kriya Yoga in dealing with Section 2, Sutra 32. There exists some confusion with regard to the meaning of the Sanskrit word Kriya. Some commentators preferring to translate it as preliminary, others as practical. As a matter of fact, Kriya Yoga is both practical and preliminary. It is preliminary because it has to be taken up in the initial stages of the practice of yoga, and it is practical because it puts to a practical test the aspirations and earnestness of the sadhaka and develops in him the capacity to begin the practice of yoga as distinguished from its mere theoretical study, however deep this may be. Let's jump ahead. So that's the end of Sutra 1. So let's jump ahead to Sutra 32 because he keeps referring to it. And I'm curious. 32. Sutra 32 is purity, contentment, austerity, self-study, and self-surrender constitute observances. We've read that one before. Okay. Let's move on to Section 2, Sutra 2. Samādhi bhavanarthaha klesha tanukara nartash cha. Trance for bringing about, afflictions for reducing, for making attenuated, and. Kriya Yoga is practiced for attenuating kleshas and bringing about samādhi. Although the practice of the three elements of Kriya Yoga is supposed to subserve the preparatory training of the aspirant, it should not therefore be assumed that they are of secondary importance and have only a limited use in the life of the sadhaka. How effective this training is and to what exalted stage of development it is capable of leading the aspirant will be seen from the second sutra, which we are considering, and which gives the results of practicing Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga not only attenuates the kleshas and thus lays the foundation of the yogic life, but it also leads the aspirant to samādhi, the essential and final technique of yoga. It is therefore also capable of building to a great extent the superstructure of the yogic life. The importance of Kriya Yoga and the high stage of development to which it can lead the sadhaka will be clear when we have considered the ultimate results of practicing Tapas, Svādhyāya, and Īśvara Praṇidhāna in Section 2, Sutras 43 to 45. The ultimate stage of samādhi is, of course, reached through the practice of Īśvara Praṇidhāna, as indicated in Section 1, Sutra 23, and Section 2, Sutra 45. In fact, very early on, remember he said, you can go right there without passing go, without collecting money, if you just surrender, right? He's saying that's the direct path. Although the two results of practicing Kriya Yoga enumerated in Section 2, Sutra 2 are related to the initial and ultimate stages of yogic practice, they are really very closely connected and, in a sense, complementary. The more the kleshas are attenuated, the greater becomes the capacity of the sadhaka to practice samādhi, and the nearer he draws to his goal of Kaivalya. When the kleshas have been reduced to the vanishing point, he is in habitual samādhi, sahaja samādhi, at the threshold of Kaivalya. We shall take up the discussion of these three elements of Kriya Yoga as part of Niyama in section 2, Sutra 32. Let's do one more. Oh, so the next one is long. Maybe I should save that for a separate video. I will. So let's stop here because Sutra 3 is pretty long. But let me read it, as is my habit. The lack of awareness of reality, the sense of egoism or I amness, attractions and repulsions, raga and dvesha, right? Towards objects and the strong desire for life are the great afflictions or causes of all miseries in life. So that'll be an exciting one to read. We'll read it in the next video. Okay. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time.